G'day folks, Mark here again, another update on what's going on here at Western Australia. Well, tomorrow we've got our rally at Parliament House. The 14th of August is our rally. I should point out at that point there are two rallies, not ours. There's our rally, which is on the 14th, which I'll go through and explain what's going on at this rally. But there's another rally, which is the March for Australia rally on the 31st. They're different rallies, it's not the same thing, it's not about the same thing. That's still a very valid thing. That's all over Australia. That's more about standing up for Australia, being one country, all the same country. It's resisting the government's mass immigration policies, I think, is one of the things it's about. Still a very good thing, and for people who want to be involved in making Australia great and making it better again, definitely worthwhile rally also. But our rally is a different thing. Our rally, which is the one I've been talking about, the one that Dave Finney has been bringing forward, is about government overreach mainly. So there's a similar thread, but this is about our state government, and this specifically is brought forward by a motion that Brian Walker's tabling or putting forward to Parliament at just after the rally. Actually, looks like 2 p.m. So the rally is going to be there mainly, get there at 11, but from 12 or from noon to 1 p.m. as largely we're talking, and Brian Walker's going to come out and talk to us at that stage. I think there's a few other people want to talk. And his disallowance motion, which is against the firearms regulations, which I'll go through and explain properly, is going to be brought forward just after the parliamentarians go back to lunch. So I think that's back from lunch. So I think that's at 1:30 in the afternoon. So pretty good timing on that side of things. And yes, that's what this rally's about. So get there, but it is, listen, far more than just this thing. It is, like I said, about government overreach. So we all know very well that our government is has been flat out making decisions for us. Been taking away rights in the same fashion of doing things, taking away rights and freedoms, and it's all over the place. So it's certainly in our rights and recreation is where it goes. So we have the pressure our farmers under from multiple different angles, largely driven out of what our government's been up to. The pressure that our recreations and this is also tangled up with rights, all sorts of stuff. When you look at fishing, there is the recreational fisher, there are the beaches you can go onto that are getting chained off, there's the areas you can't fish anymore, but it's also a lot of pressure on the businesses that are operating fishing industry out there as well. So lots of pressure in those places. There's lots of pressure in our in our forestry and in our national park side of things, where there's a lot of trails that are getting chained off. There's roads that are getting chained off. There's pressure coming on four-wheel drivers. And I suppose I can go on for a long time about all the different areas that are being, from prospecting to bushwalking to schools to schooling to, there's so many different places where our elected and unelected government are flat out deciding that you'll do what they tell you to because they know better than you, which we all know isn't their job. This supposed thing we call a democracy is not working out that well. But the fundamentals of what it's supposed to be is they're supposed to work for us. And they have chosen to a large degree to make decisions for us because they've decided they know better. Or there's vested interest that they would prefer to appease rather than us. And it's time for us to stand up, stand together and say, listen, no, it's not okay. It's not okay to do this. If you don't start to listen to us, things aren't going to go well for you either. So we're under pressure. Freedoms, they are just about to take away in every fashion they can a lot of our ability to speak. In speech side of things, there's safety laws coming to places. I'm not going to get tangled into all the different messes I can go with, but anyone of those of you who are woken up out there, who have actually started to realise what's going on, and there is a vast majority of us that have been affected in various fashions. Well, understand that it's not just you, everyone else in the same place, and the mess we're in, be it the cost of living, be it the erosion of freedoms and rights, be it the whatever it is, it's time to get our government to start to make decisions that suit us as the population, as the community. So in this particular one we're talking about here, there's the disallowance motion, which is attached to the firearms regulations, which is attached to the Firearms Act that has been put through by the WA government. This all happened with Papalia, Paul Papalia, the ex-police minister, and McGowan, the ex-premier, that started this process off. Basically, Cook and our new guy, Reece Whitby, has moved into it with a little different sort of smile on their faces and trying to make it look a little better, but it's the same thing. It came in with a very obvious statement of we're going to remove the firearms. Get another hobby. They have then smoothed it off to where it seems a little nicer. It isn't. It's the same thing. It's a very unruly, massive act and regulations that are designed to actually remove all firearms. There are people that have been convinced that they're going to be okay. If they comply, they'll be okay. And there's been people convincing them, both in the police force and not in the police force. But the writing's on the wall of what's coming here. The big deal for those people who don't care about firearms is this was actually done with a lot of, well, let's say skullduggery, a lot of bullying, a lot of telling lies. Done things on the points of emergency, done things in a way of forcing things through, saying we'll talk about this later on, this massive thing, we'll get a chance to talk about it later on, and didn't, got forced through. The nature of what unfortunately a majority Labor government has the power to do and has done. So that's the mess to start off with. In any form of democracy, in any form of the will of the people, was completely ignored for the will of whatever the entities were that created these new laws. There's the point that they've set it up so that the regulations have more control than anything else. That's where it's all driven out of the regulations. This moves into a very scary thought or very scary situation where the police and the police minister, without parliamentary oversight, so without the normal checks and balances we have in our system, they can change the laws to pretty much whatever they want. They have set up a system that they really have left as what thing called Henry VIII clauses, which means it basically is stuff that doesn't need to be explained and it can be changed later on, so it can get through without the separation of power or checks and balances of governments, like I said. That is set up with a massive amount of that ability in these laws. And what I actually want to point out is that this process is happening in other places. It's not just firearms by any means. So they need to be held to account to this. It's done as close as you can get to lawless. I think they've changed the laws enough to be able to sneak away and sort of get it done if they're not held too closely to account. But it's been done in a fashion that they can really do it whatever they want. So if your sport, if your profession, if your sport, if your freedoms or whatever form are in their crosshairs, they play this game, what chance have you got? Now, the big one they've started with and done very heavily with, and there's a few others, but the big one is firearms. And really it is very obviously, you don't need to pull the veil back very far, and you can see it is about disarm the population. I would ask why. Why would you disarm the population? Without any statistical reason, why would you do that? I'll leave that question there because there's lots of people who would have got good ideas as to why. But more to the point, right here and now, we have a situation where all of the people who are about to vote in our upper house, where Labor does not have the majority. So there is the ability for the upper house to make a decision that goes against Labor or against the government. So that's a very, very relevant point, because what we actually have is a set of laws, an act and regulations that have been built undemocratically without proper consultation. They have also admitted by the majority of the government putting it through to a review, saying that, okay, this is a mess. The word shambolic's been used lots of times, diabolical's been used lots of times. I think it's the Attorney General has said that the system they're using, the portal to do this, isn't working. There is so many things that are not working. It doesn't work. The GPs said, listen, the majority of them said they don't want to do the health checks that they've decided to mandatorily put on firearms owners. This is moving into privacy invasion beyond the imaginable is actually happening. But the police are carrying on. There's a review that's put in place which is going to take a fair bit of time. They're not stopping. They're not slowing down what they're doing. They're carrying on full steam ahead. Very clear and easy to see that the review was put through so easily because all of the parliamentarians knew it's not going to do anything. If we can stop things in the process, if we can stop the police from carrying on and confiscating firearms and taking firearms licenses off people and pushing people to the edge, which they are, seriously pushing law-abiding, innocent otherwise, firearms owners to the brink. And it's a fairly heavy thing to see some of the situations and some of the positions that, particularly in our older generations, particularly in our farming communities, particularly the pressure they're put under with the blatant disrespect and disregard for even the caring about a human, let alone wildlife, let alone all the devastation that's happening, the blatant disregards of just pushing forward. And they know if they can get that done, which they will do, almost certainly will get this whole thing through before the review's done. That is what any politician or any of the parliamentary members will be able to tell you properly. That's what's going to happen. And at that place, when the review board, the review committee puts their stuff through to the upper house, regardless of their suggestions, which will probably be vast, the actual situation there for all of them to actually try and fix it then will be too hard. And what does the government do if it's too hard? It does nothing. It'll make a couple of little changes and say, oh well, that was unfortunate, wish we didn't do that, but carry on because we can't afford the expense of going back. So the only way the review has any strength is if we find a way to stop it now. So there's an e-petition that Dave Finney's put forward, there's the disallowance. And I'll explain the disallowance a tiny bit more. The disallowance motion is because of what Brian Walker's already done. He's taken the Firearms Act, has gone through and has been placed in basically where it's through. It's in Parliament, although it could be pushed back. It takes a lot of work. That's already been done, been ratified in there. But it works by the regulations. And the regulations have actually been stopped. I don't know the term to go properly with it, but it's got a wheel chuck under it, so it's ready to roll over the line, but it hasn't yet. That's what Brian Walker and someone else in Parliament has already set up. So what it puts into now is, yes, they could actually pass a disallowance motion and then the whole lot basically gets put back. We would revert to the laws that have been working for the last 50 years without any major incident, without any problems, without any statistical issues whatsoever. The only places where it had problems is where the police have not used the laws that are already there. And yes, that's what's actually happened. Amazing to think, but they've not used the laws that already have. So we don't have any problems with those laws. Goes back to that, and then because of this process, they'd get on and write some proper laws that would then update them and bring us forward into 2025 and beyond, and make sense of things done with all stakeholders at the table to make some proper laws and do this properly, do this in a democratic fashion. But here's the thing, here's a pretty important detail that you've got to understand. Right now we have a situation where every member of that upper house actually is about to walk through a marking gate. What I mean by that is they get to go through, like you're drafting sheep, they get to go through this side, you get that stamp, and this side you get that stamp. From this point forward in their lives, we know who they voted for. And let's be clear about this. We have laws that were rammed through that everyone says don't work properly, a system that doesn't work properly. We basically have close enough, and I don't know the proper term, but close enough to a lawless way, or certainly an undemocratic way this process has happened, let alone all the damage that's obviously happening to our native flora and fauna, to the individuals, to our farming, to our industries. All these things have happened, and everyone who is not telling lies knows this is happening. So any parliamentarian that says, oh listen, I'll leave it, I've voted for the review, which I have heard a fair bit of that too, I approved the review, that's why we supported the review. Well, like I told you, they, like I, like everyone who knows what's going on, knows the review's going to do nothing. So it's not a rock they can hide behind. So from this point forward, do they care about you, the people, West Australia, the flora and fauna? Do they care about our society at all? Or do they just care about themselves? Do they just care about the government? Because on the other side of this little vote that they're about to do tomorrow afternoon, you can stamp them on the forehead. You know who they are. They've shown their colours completely. Are they West Aussies? Do they care about our future? Do they care about our bush? Do they care about our people? Or do they just care about the government and the deals they're doing there? So get ready with the brands, because yes, every single one, we will know who they voted for, and that is the situation. This isn't about firearms anymore. This is about our future. This is about our flora and fauna. This is about our children's children and what the world they're setting up for it. So I would hold you, Mr. Members and Mrs. Members that are up there, I'd hold you to look at this very, very thoroughly. Vote with your conscience rather than your back pocket. This really matters, and yes, we will be holding you to account. We will remember this. We will advertise this. We will put forward exactly who did this. You want to get back in again, and it's not just for the government, you're going to have to use your conscience and your better judgment with this vote. So beyond that, everybody, get there, be there. Attendance really matters. The more people are there, the better. I'm not a big fan of the Aussie way of chucking a sickie to go and do what you want to do. I'm not being one of those people. But if there's a day to chuck a sickie about things that really matter, and yeah, this is about your future, but it's about your kids' future, about your grandkids' future. This is a pretty big point that we're talking about here. Our government has done things outside of its normal laws, outside of common laws, outside of so many things that it's actually done. Is it going to be held accountable legally? I don't know. They write the laws. That's a tricky one. The legal system works for the government. So that's a tricky one to try and get to that place. Let's hope we can get some of that in some places. But morally, we have a situation where we can stand up. Let's get together and stand up. For those people who think their world's all sorted out, whether that's firearms owners that has complied, or whether that's the four drivers that are not paying attention, or you're just not paying attention, please have a look around. It isn't going like we wanted it to. Things aren't getting better at the moment. It isn't going to get better by staying on the path they're on. Let's get together. Let's stand together, be peaceful about it, but let's be there. Let's hold them to account. Let's see if we can get them back to that place. I urge everyone, that this is an afternoon to take off. Get there at 11 o'clock would be a good time to get there, but even if you're rolling up at 12, it doesn't matter. Get there, be there. Let the media know that we're there. A lot of people there will start to change things. It really does matter. It's an important thing to do. We really should have a word of the people that are actually controlling or running our government. They should be working to our will rather than to their will. The best way they do that is by all getting together. So certainly me and Sam are going to be there. I look forward to all the people that are going to be there. Please, of the people who are saying no, the disdainers, that side of things, I'd come back to this same sort of conversation I've said before. There's only really two sides to this. There's the people and the government. If people are fighting this rally, I don't need to really say it out loud, do I? Only two sides to this. What their motives are beyond that point, I don't know, but they're on the other side. So let's get there, regardless of what someone said otherwise, and go and talk to a mate. Go and talk to the guy down the road and find out what it is that the government's stepping on his neck with. And this is a place where we can change things. We let them know the main thing this is about is government overreach. And what we're actually fighting for, yes, at this point, is the disallowance to try and help it, but it's really about all of our rights and all of our freedoms and standing together and telling them, no, enough's enough. It's time to get back to what your job is. You work for us. Anyway, guys, that's my video for today. Really like to see you there tomorrow. Hope I do. Other than that, thanks for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.